The blue waters of Thalassa Prime had turned dark with the blood of dying sea creatures. Kara floated in the deep trench that her people called home. Her tentacles wrapped around a small communication device that flickered with weak light. She was one of the last Thalassan engineers. Today she would send their final message to the stars. Above her, the mechanical monsters worked without rest. The harvesters had come 6 months ago in ships so large they blocked out the sun. They did not speak. They did not negotiate. They simply began taking everything from the ocean world that had been peaceful for over 1,000 years. Kara watched. Through the crystal dome of her underwater city, as another group of her people was pulled up by the metal arms of the harvesting machines. The Thalassans could not fight back. Their ancestors had given up weapons long ago, choosing instead to live in harmony with the sea. Their technology was made from living coral and trained sea animals, beautiful but useless against the cold metal invaders. "The message is ready," said Nero, swimming up beside her with tired movements. His usually bright skin was pale with fear and exhaustion. But will anyone listen? The other star peoples have ignored every call for help. Kara looked at the device in her tentacles. It contained everything important about their world. Their history, their art, their science, and their desperate plea for someone, anyone, to help them before it was too late. She had heard that some species in the galaxy fought wars and built weapons. Maybe one of them would care enough to act. "We have to try," she whispered, pressing the activation key far away in space. Commander Hannah Kim was drinking coffee on the bridge of the Earth. Ship Horizon's Edge when the alien message arrived. The ship was on a routine patrol of the outer systems. Nothing exciting ever happened out here. Lieutenant Jinwoo Park was the first to notice the strange signal coming through their deep space receivers. "Ma'am, we're getting something weird." "On the emergency frequencies," he called out, adjusting his headset. "It's not human, but it's using standard galactic distress codes." Hannah put down her coffee and walked over to his station. The signal was weak and breaking up, but the universal translation software was working hard to make sense of it. Slowly, words began appearing on the screen. "Please, ... anyone who receives this message, ... our world is dying. We are the Thalassans. Of the ocean planet, you call Thalassa Prime. Mechanical beings called harvesters are destroying everything we have built. They take our water, our people, our life itself, to fuel their ships." The message continued with detailed information about their location, their attackers, and their civilization. But what caught Hannah's attention were the images that came with the words, "Beautiful underwater cities with towers made of living coral, graceful beings that looked like they were part octopus, part angel swimming through crystal clear waters." Then the horrible pictures of the harvesters at work, turning paradise into an industrial wasteland. "How many of them are left?" Hannah asked quietly. Ginwoo worked at his computer for several minutes before answering. "According to this data, maybe 3,000 survivors out of millions. They're hiding in deep ocean trenches, but they're protective. Barriers are failing, and the harvesters, hundreds of ships, maybe thousands. The message says they've already destroyed 17 other worlds the same way." Hannah felt anger growing in her chest. She had heard about the harvesters before. The galactic community knew they existed, but nobody wanted to fight them. They were too strong, too numerous. It was easier to avoid their path and hope they went somewhere else. But that was not the human way. "Get me a direct communication link to Fleet Command on Earth," she ordered.
Priority Alpha?
Shouldn't we follow standard procedures and report this through normal channels? That could take weeks. Hannah looked at the images of the dying Thalassan children on her screen, their bioluminescent skin growing dim as they starved in the ruins of their world. These people don't have weeks. They probably don't have days. Within hours, message from Thalassa Prime was being studied in military headquarters around Earth. The aliens had included detailed technical specifications of the harvester ships. They had also included something else. Star charts showing the exact location of their world and the mechanical fleet destroying it. Captain Minho Lee was the first to volunteer his ship for a rescue mission. Then Captain Haijin Choi. Then dozens more. Soon, Every available vessel in the 3rd Expeditionary Fleet was being prepared for immediate departure, back on Thalassa Prime. Kara floated in the darkness, watching the last of her city's power systems fail. The message had been sent, but she did not expect an answer. The peaceful species of the galaxy had learned to hide from the harvesters. The warlike species were too busy fighting each other to care about strangers. She did not know that across the void of space, human warships were already moving toward her world at maximum speed, loaded with enough firepower to turn the harvester fleet into scrap metal. She did not know that humanity had a simple rule. When someone asks for help, you help them. And when someone threatens the innocent, you stop them. The war engines of Earth were coming, and the harvesters were about to learn why humans were the only species in the galaxy that other predators feared. Admiral Soman Yoon stood in the war room deep beneath Sol, staring at the holographic display that showed the dying world of Thalassa Prime. The images from the alien distress call played over and over on the screens around her. Peaceful sea. Creatures being pulled apart by mechanical claws. Beautiful coral cities being ground into dust. Children hiding in dark caves while their parents died above them. "How long since we received their message?" she asked Colonel Doyanam, who was studying tactical reports at a nearby table. 18 hours, ma'am. The signal took 6 months to reach us. By now, there might be nothing left to save. Salmon clenched her fists. Around the galaxy, other species had received the same message. Peaceful ones sent thoughts and prayers. The neutral ones filed diplomatic protests that no one would read. The warlike ones were too busy with their own conflicts to care about strangers dying far away. But humans were different. "Send immediate orders to all fleet commanders," she said. "I want every available ship prepared for combat deployment within 72 hours. Full war loadout." "Ma'am, the other council members haven't approved military action yet. They're still debating whether we should get involved in alien conflicts." Salmon turned to face him, her eyes burning with determination. "Colonel, there are children dying out there while politicians debate. I'm not asking for permission. I'm giving orders." Within minutes, emergency signals were flashing across human space. On Luna Base, Captain Haijin Choi was eating breakfast. When her communicator exploded with activity, she read the mission briefing twice before she believed it. Then she was running toward the hangar bay, shouting orders to her crew. "I want every plasma torpedo loaded and checked," she called out. To her weapons officer, "And get me the experimental railgun ammunition from the restricted storage. We're going to need everything we have." Major Sung-hoon Ko was training his Marines in zero-gravity combat when the alert came through. He gathered his soldiers in the main briefing room and showed them pictures of the Thalassan survivors huddled in their underwater caves. "We're going to war, people," he announced. "Not for territory, not for resources, but because someone asked for help and we're the only ones who answered." His Marines looked at the images of the graceful sea creatures and their destroyed cities. These aliens had never hurt anyone. Now they were being murdered by machines that saw all life as fuel to be consumed. "When do we leave, sir?" asked Sergeant Mina Park. 36 hours, and we're going in full force. Across human space, the war machine that had been sleeping began to wake up. The 3rd Expeditionary Fleet was humanity's most powerful military force, designed to fight entire alien armadas if necessary. Its ships carried weapons that could crack planets and shields that could survive direct hits from stellar bombs. Lieutenant Commander Yuna Shin worked through the night on the flagship Iron Thunder, coordinating with her fellow officers as they planned their assault. The Harvesters had never faced a military force like this before. They were used to attacking defenseless worlds, overwhelming peaceful civilizations with their superior numbers. Intelligence reports show over 2,000 Harvester vessels in the Thalassa system, reported Communications Officer Dong-Hae Lim. They've established a complete blockade around the planet. Nothing gets in or out. "What about the survivors?" Yuna asked. "Still alive, according to our deep space sensors. About 3,000 Thalassans hiding in ocean trenches, protected by some kind of biological energy barrier. But the barriers are weakening. They have maybe days before total collapse." Yuna studied the tactical display showing the Harvester fleet formation. The mechanical ships were arranged in perfect geometric patterns around Thalassa Prime, like a spider's web designed to catch anyone trying to escape or interfere. They were confident, maybe overconfident. They had never lost a harvesting operation before. "Run a full analysis of their ship designs and weapon systems," she ordered. "I want to know exactly how to kill them." Back on Earth, the news networks were beginning to report the story. Humanity was mobilizing for war to save an alien species they had never met before. Some people protested, saying it was not their problem. Others argued that Earth's resources should be used to help humans first. But in the military bases and shipyards, there was no debate. Admiral Yoon's orders were clear, and her soldiers trusted her judgment. If she said these aliens needed help, then they would get help. Captain Woo Jin-han finished loading his heavy cruiser with enough firepower to destroy a small moon. His crew worked with quiet efficiency, checking and double-checking every system. They knew they were going into battle against overwhelming odds, but that had never stopped humans before. "Sir," called out his navigation officer, "we're receiving priority communications from the other fleet commanders. Everyone's ready for departure." Wu Jin looked out the viewport at the dozens of warships gathering in Earth's orbit. Each one carried hundreds of highly trained soldiers and enough advanced weaponry to level continents. The Harvesters had made a mistake when they chose to destroy Thalassa Prime. They had revealed themselves to a species that would not ignore genocide. "Signal the fleet," he ordered. "All ships, prepare for hyperspace jump. Destination, Thalassa Prime. Mission, total elimination of hostile forces." The war engines of humanity were finally moving, and somewhere in the dark between the stars, the Harvester Collective would soon learn why every predator species in the galaxy had learned to fear the humans. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace like thunder breaking through silence. One moment, the space around Thalassa Prime was empty except for the mechanical harvester ships. The next moment, 47 human warships materialized in perfect battle formation. Their weapons already charging and their shields at full power, Admiral So Min-yoon stood on the bridge of the Iron Thunder, looking at the tactical display with growing anger. What had once been a beautiful blue world was now a nightmare of industrial destruction. Massive harvester platforms floated above the planet like metal islands, each one the size of a city. Thousands of smaller ships moved between them like insects, carrying stolen water and processed organic matter to the larger vessels. "Dear God," whispered Navigation Officer Taeyeon Park, "they've taken 80% of the oceans." The planet that should have been covered in pristine blue water was now mostly gray and brown. Where there had once been deep seas full of life, there were now empty craters and mechanical mining equipment. The harvesters worked without stopping, their machines grinding through the ocean floor to extract every useful mineral and element. "Life. Signs report," Yoon ordered, her voice tight with controlled rage. Communications Officer Kyung-min Lee worked at his station for several minutes before answering. "I'm detecting approximately 3,000 survivors, Admiral. They're hiding in the deepest ocean trenches, about 12 kilometers below the surface. Some kind of bioelectric barrier is protecting them, but it's failing fast. How long do they have? Maybe 48 hours before complete collapse." Commander Jeong Kim launched her reconnaissance fighters to get a closer look at the harvester operation. What she saw made her stomach turn. The mechanical beings were not just taking resources. They were taking everything. Fish, plants, coral, even the microscopic life in the water was being processed into raw materials for their fleet. "This isn't harvesting," she reported back to the flagship. "This is complete sterilization. They're turning the entire planet into dead rock." Through her fighters' cameras, the fleet could see the last Thalassan refuges. Deep underwater caves where the graceful sea creatures huddled together, their bioluminescent skin dim with fear and exhaustion. Their children pressed close to their parents, while the adults used the last of their strength to maintain the energy barriers that kept the harvester drones away. Captain Min-ho Lee ran a full scan of the enemy fleet. The numbers were even worse than intelligence had estimated. Over 3,000 harvester vessels of various sizes, from small drones to massive motherships that could process an entire moon, Their formation was perfect, with overlapping fields of fire that would destroy any rescue attempt. "We're not expecting military resistance," observed Weapons Officer Yunbi Park. "Look at their positioning. They're arranged for efficiency, not defense." She was right. The Harvesters had encountered 17 previous civilizations, and none of them had fought back with serious military force. The mechanical beings had grown overconfident, treating their harvesting operations like industrial processes rather than potential battlefields. Suddenly, the human fleet received a transmission on standard galactic frequencies. The voice was cold and emotionless, like a computer reading a shopping list. "Unknown biological vessels," the Harvester Collective announced. "You're interfering with authorized resource extraction. Withdraw immediately or face processing." This world has been claimed for conversion. Resistance is futile. Admiral Yoon looked around her bridge at the faces of her officers. They had traveled across the galaxy to help people they had never met, and now they were being told to leave while innocent beings died below them. "Open a channel," she ordered. "Channel open, ma'am." "This is Admiral Salman Yoon of the United Earth Defense Force," she said, her voice carrying across space to every harvester ship in the system. "You are committing genocide against a peaceful species. Withdraw your forces immediately or face the consequences." The response came quickly. Biological designation. Human. Threat assessment. Minimal. Your species file indicates standard pacification protocols. Compliance or processing. Choose now. Captain Dongyun Park laughed grimly from his destroyer's bridge. "They think we're like the other galactic species. They have no idea what they're dealing with." The Harvesters had studied every known spacefaring civilization in the galaxy. Most were peaceful traders or diplomats. Some were warriors, but they fought with honor codes and rules that limited their effectiveness. None of them had ever developed the systematic, overwhelming military force that humans had perfected over centuries of warfare. Major Sung Hoon Ko prepared his Marines for underwater combat. His soldiers checked their powered armor and tested their weapons systems. They had trained for every possible environment, including deep ocean warfare. The Harvester drones had never faced opponents who could match their technology and exceed their ruthlessness. 30 seconds to engagement range, reported the fleet's tactical coordinator. Admiral Yoon took one last look at the images of the dying Thalassen children, then turned to her weapons officer. "All ships, this is Iron Thunder. The negotiation is over. These machines want to process biological matter. Let's show them what processed metal looks like." She paused, thinking of the peaceful aliens hiding in the dark depths below, waiting for death or rescue. "All units, weapons free. Target every harvester vessel in the system. Show them why predators fear humanity." The war engines of Earth prepared to unleash hell, and the Harvesters were about to learn the difference between harvesting defenseless prey and fighting a species that had turned warfare into an art form. The first human torpedo hit the Harvester frigate like a miniature sun exploding. The mechanical ship, which had been calmly processing stolen seawater moments before, simply vanished in a ball of superheated plasma. 2 more frigates followed. Within seconds, their metal hulls vaporizing before their AI systems could even register the attack. "Captain." Hyjin Choi watched from her command chair as her railguns tore through the Harvester formation like invisible hammers. Each shot moved at a significant fraction of light speed, punching holes through enemy hulls that had never been designed to face military-grade weapons. The mechanical beings had built their ships for efficiency, not survival. "Target the processing platforms," Admiral Yoon ordered from the flagship. "Don't let them escape with what they've stolen." The massive Harvester motherships began turning toward the human fleet, their own weapons charging for the first time in decades. But they moved too slowly, designed for industrial work rather than combat maneuvers. Captain Dongyun Park's destroyer squadron swept around them like wolves circling cattle, plasma cannons burning through their armor plating. Deep beneath the waves, Major Sung-Hoon Ka led his Marines into hell. They dropped from orbit in armored pods that hit the ocean surface like meteors, then sank rapidly toward the Harvester underwater mining operations. Their powered suits were designed for this exact scenario, with built-in sonar, underwater propulsion, and weapons that could function in any environment. Contacts reported Sergeant Mina Park over the CUM system. Harvester drones, dozens of them, moving toward the Thalassen refuge sites. The mechanical drones were ugly things, all sharp edges and grinding tools meant for processing organic matter. They had been heading toward the failing energy barriers that protected the last survivors when the human Marines intercepted them. What followed was not a battle, but a massacre. KO's plasma rifle cut through 3 drones before they could react. His soldiers moved through the water like deadly fish, their advanced technology making them faster and more maneuverable than the industrial machines they hunted. The Harvesters had never faced opponents who could fight them in their own element. Above the surface, the space battle was becoming completely one-sided. Commander Jeong Kim's fighter squadrons swarmed through the Harvester formations there, small size and incredible speed, making them impossible to target effectively. Each fighter carried enough firepower to cripple a Harvester cruiser, and there were hundreds of them. Processing error, the Harvester collective broadcast on multiple frequencies, unknown tactical parameters, biological entities employing systematic violence beyond calculated possibilities. Captain Wujenhan smiled grimly as he heard the transmission. His heavy cruiser Thunderstorm had just finished destroying its 5th Harvester mothership, and his crew was already selecting their next target. The mechanical beings were learning too late that humans had spent centuries perfecting the art of war. "They're trying to retreat," observed Weapons Officer Co. Yoon Lim. "Some of the smaller ships are breaking formation." "Not today," Admiral Yoon replied coldly. "No one leaves this system until every last Harvester is scrap metal." The human fleet spread out to prevent any escapes, their superior speed and maneuverability, allowing them to outflank the mechanical ships at every turn. What had started as an industrial operation had become a death trap. The Harvesters found themselves completely outmatched by opponents who fought with precision and overwhelming force in the deep ocean trenches. The surviving Thalassans watched in amazement as human Marines cleared the waters around their refuges. Kara, who had sent the original distress message, pressed against the crystal wall of her shelter and saw armored figures moving through the water like undersea angels, destroying every Harvester drone that came near. "They actually came," whispered Nero, his bioluminescent skin flickering with disbelief. "The humans actually came to help us." Above them, the space battle was reaching its climax. The largest Harvester mothership, a vessel the size of a small moon, activated its most powerful weapon systems. Beams of energy that could have melted continents lanced out toward the human fleet. They struck the iron, Thunder's shields, and simply stopped, absorbed by defensive systems that had been designed to withstand attacks from entire enemy armadas. Admiral Yoon didn't even feel the impact. "Return fire," she ordered calmly. The flagship's main gun spoke once. It's a massive Harvester vessel, which had survived for thousands of years and processed 17 worlds, broke apart like a child's toy. Its destruction sent shockwaves through the mechanical collective's network, and suddenly every remaining Harvester ship was broadcasting the same message. Retreat protocol activated. Biological species designation updated. Extreme threat, void. Sol system. Avoid Sol system. Avoid Sol system. But there was nowhere to run. The human fleet had them surrounded, and Admiral Yoon was not in a forgiving mood. She thought of the millions of Thalassans who had died while the galaxy watched and did nothing. She thought of the children hiding in the dark, waiting for rescue that might never come. "Finish them," she commanded, the war engines of humanity. Unleashed their full fury, and within 6 hours, the Harvester fleet was nothing but floating debris. Their network fell silent across the galaxy, their expansion halted by the simple knowledge that somewhere among the stars, humans waited for the next species foolish enough to prey on the innocent. The mechanical age of terror was over, ended, by beings who understood that sometimes peace could only be achieved through overwhelming violence. The silence after the battle was strange and peaceful. Where there had been thousands of mechanical ships grinding through the oceans of Thalassa Prime, now there was only floating debris and the gentle sound of waves against the remaining islands. The Harvester fleet that had terrorized 17 worlds was nothing more than scrap metal drifting in space. Deep in the ocean trenches, surviving thalassans slowly began to emerge from their hiding places. Kara was the first to leave her shelter, swimming carefully upward through waters that had been a war zone just hours before. Her tentacles moved nervously as she searched for the mechanical drones that had hunted her people for months. Instead, she found something impossible. Human marines in powered armor were floating in the water, their weapons lowered and their helmet lights glowing softly. One of them, a woman with kind eyes visible through her faceplate, gestured for Kara to approach. "It's safe now," the marine said through her suit's translator. "The machines are gone. All of them." Kara's bioluminescent skin flickered with confusion and wonder. These were the same beings who had just unleashed such terrible destruction on the harvesters. She had watched from her shelter as human weapons turned massive motherships into clouds of vaporized metal. Now this same warrior was speaking to her gently, like a parent comforting a frightened child. More thalassans began to appear from the deep trenches. Nero swam up beside Kara, his elderly body moving slowly after months of hiding in fear. Behind him came dozens of others, then hundreds, the survivors of an entire civilization, emerging into sunlight for the first time since the harvesters arrived above the surface. Admiral Yoon stood on the bridge of the Iron Thunder and watched her fleet begin the cleanup operation. Captain Min-Ho Lee was coordinating the collection of harvester debris, making sure none of their technology could be recovered and used against other worlds. The mechanical beings, weapons, and computers were being systematically destroyed. Casualty. Report, she requested from her medical officer. 12 wounded, none seriously. No deaths, reported Dr. Chow Yung. Oh. The harvesters never had a chance to fight back effectively. Yoon nodded. The battle had been so one-sided that it barely qualified as a fight. The mechanical beings had been designed to overwhelm peaceful civilizations, not to face a military force that had been preparing for galactic warfare for decades. But the real work was just beginning. Chief Engineer Min Jin Yu was already deploying atmospheric processors to begin restoring Thalassa Prime's oceans. The massive machines would work for months, converting raw materials back into clean water and rebuilding the planet's ecosystem. Would take years to fully heal the damage, but the process could start immediately. The Thalassan representatives. "Want to meet with you, Admiral?" reported Communications Officer Kung Min Lee. "They're asking for a formal meeting to discuss... Well, to discuss everything." An hour later, Admiral Yoon found herself in the strangest negotiation of her career. She sat in a specially constructed underwater meeting chamber, breathing through an oxygen mask while the Thalassan elders floated around her in the water. Their translucent bodies glowed with patterns of light that the translation computers struggled to interpret. The eldest Thalassan, whose name the computers rendered as Deepsinger Coral Dream, spoke first. "We do not understand your species," he said, his bioluminescent patterns shifting with confusion. "You wage war with such terrible efficiency, yet now you offer to rebuild what was destroyed. Why?" Yoon considered the question carefully. Could she explain humanity to beings who had lived in peace for over 1,000 years? How could she make them understand that humans could be both destroyers and protectors, often at the same time? "'Cause someone had to," she said finally. "Your people asked for help, and we answered. The harvesters were committing genocide, and that's something we cannot allow. But at what cost to yourselves, your ships, your soldiers, your resources? You have gained nothing from this battle. You gained something very important," Yoon replied. "We gain the knowledge that 3,000 innocent beings are still alive when they should have died. That's worth more than any resource or territory." The Thalassan elders communicated among themselves in rapid flashes of colored light. Finally, Coral Dream turned back to the human admiral. "We wish to offer you anything we have. Our biotechnology, our knowledge of ocean worlds, our friendship. But we fear we have little that could interest a species as advanced as yours." "You're wrong," Yoon said with a smile. "You have something we value more than any technology. Have wisdom. You've built a civilization based on harmony and peace. That's something humanity is still learning. Over the following days, the two species worked together to begin the long process of healing Thalassa Prime. Human engineers and Thalasan biotechnicians collaborated on restoration projects. Human Marines helped evacuate survivors from damaged areas, while Thalasan healers tended to both species with equal care. The news of the battle spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The peaceful species whispered of humanity's swift response to the Thalasan distress call. The predator species updated their star charts to avoid human-protected space. And in the deepest regions of mechanical space, the surviving harvester collectives broadcast a simple warning to any who would listen. Avoid the violent primates. They do not negotiate, they do not retreat, they only destroy. But on Thalassa Prime, as the first new fish swam through waters that had been sterile just days before, the message was different. The humans had come when called, fought when necessary, and stayed to rebuild what had been broken. They had proven that sometimes the greatest strength was not in the weapons you carried, but in the choice of when to use them and when to put them away.